Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick, and Thanksgiving is coming up next week, 2020, and it just so happens to be a COVID Thanksgiving, so I'm not sure if you all are going to be together with your relatives. Please be careful, especially the ones that just flew in. But it's important to take advantage of Thanksgiving. It's a feast, and it's tough these days. It's going to be tough for the next few months because of the surge, but I think there's still value in family togetherness. If you overeat or if you don't watch yourself, you'll have a little bit of a flare-up of belly bloat, maybe indigestion, maybe post-Thanksgiving Day aches and pains. So I want you guys to avoid that. The first thing is, before you start your meal, your Thanksgiving Day dinner, I would suggest praying. Now, for those of you who practice or have a religious practice, you know the value of praying before meals. For those of you who don't, think of it this way. Whenever we have a major sporting event, usually the team huddles together with coach and they bow their heads in silence, or at least in reverence, for anticipating what's coming up. A lot of boxers will do it in the corner right before they enter into the fight. It does ground you before you indulge. It also gives you a little pause. So there is value. The best food I ever had was one of the events at the Chopra Center where we were supposed to eat in silence. And it was a little uncomfortable because they had a table of, I think, 10 doctors, and we couldn't talk. And after you got rid of the uncomfortable feeling, it was actually very tasty. I think we were taking our time with eating and enjoying the flavors. You'll be able to go into the meal with mindfulness. Those of you who practice mindfulness, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you who don't, please try to figure out how to get your own mindful practice. It's important, especially with the holidays and the stress that's coming up. And consider eating your protein first. Lou Arona, a doctor out of New York, he did a pretty decent study where he divided the meal into proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And he asked some folks to do protein first and then the carb and fat. He asked some folks to do the carb first, so forth and so on. But he found that in the people that ate their protein sources first, whether it was animal or plant-based, the protein, when it was taken in first, did not induce an insulin spike, which is really important. Those of you who know about insulin is useful after meals, but I think that if you look at the United States, the weight issues, 1 in 3 Americans is obese or overweight, linked to insulin resistance, and that's the first stage into diabetes. You might want to save the alcohol for after your meal. Alcohol, most of it, especially if you're a beer drinker, is sugar. And sugar or carbohydrate, especially if you're a craft beer drinker. So when you indulge in that first, you insulin spike your blood. And from that point on, the higher the insulin spike, the more you're going to have that post-Thanksgiving Day bloat and fatigue. And it's not good if you're a diabetic. So protein first, alcohol afterward. And the other thing with alcohol afterward is, when you drink the alcohol makes you feel good, no question, but it also decreases inhibition. So the only thing that stops people from overeating is inhibition, knowing that you're going to pay for it later. So if you knock that out, you can potentially eat a lot, especially if there's a game on. Put the knife down. So your utensils, knife, fork, spoon, chewing properly would be important. It sounds like it's obsessive compulsive, but if you take each serving and you chew 32 times, now 32 is probably more of an arbitrary number, but just chewing 32 times, number one, you macerate the food, so it's easier to digest. Number two, you mix it with amylase, saliva, and that's the first enzyme that your body produces to start digesting food properly. The faster you inhale something, like when you're in college, the less you chew it, the less that you've tasted the food you chewed, and the harder it is for your stomach to break that stuff down. Now, if you're in college and high school, you probably have really good stomachs and good acid, but if you're older than that, you really should take your time. Chew properly, mix it in with saliva, get the essence, just like that eating in silence idea I told you about. When you chew properly, you get to taste the essence of the food. And when you enjoy the taste, enjoy the flavor, you get satiated faster. Sometimes people need extra help, and chewing your food, mixing it in with amylase or saliva is important, but sometimes if you do have an issue with digestion, taking a digestive enzyme might help your digestive system break down that huge meal a lot easier. So check out the video. I'll put the link down below for digestive enzymes. Some people would say, well, forget the digestive enzymes. You should be able to make your own, and you're right, you should be able to, but we don't always overindulge like in Thanksgiving Day feasts. So especially if your grandma's around or your mom's around and you make some really good pie afterward. There's something in Okinawa called Hara hachibu. It's when you're about 7/10 full as far as a gastric distension. You wait. At that point in time, when you notice, ooh, I'm 7/10 full, you hold on any further eating. Just sit there and watch everybody else, or you start to indulge in conversation. Because it takes a little bit of time before that full stomach sends a signal to the brain and says, I'm finished eating. You kind of blow past that and you continue eating. You'll get to the point where the brain got the signal, but you just had another plate full. To dovetail onto the digestive enzymes, carminatives, anise, fennel, cinnamon, coriander, ginger, all these things are, you will find them in some Indian restaurants. Upon leaving, you'll see these tiny seeds. Those are called anise. And anise, if you chew on them, it helps to decrease flatulence. They seem to decrease the inflammation to the digestive tube. So if you're packing down the food and the volume, it's going to hurt. So if you didn't listen to my first few bullet points, sometimes taking a carminative might help in allowing digestion to float through. So ginger especially is a prokinetic. Some people who have diabetes and their stomachs don't empty fast enough, so if you take ginger, it helps to expel, it helps to move the digestive system along. Italian called Passeggiata. I've always loved it, but and I noticed it when my family went to Italy. After eating, you walk. In fact, the legend is that in neighborhoods in Italy, everybody on Sunday got dressed up and decked out after dinner, and they went and walked the street. I think walking is helpful. It helps peristalsis. It helps get out and say hello to everybody. It also is a nice time for family bonding versus sitting down in the living room and then watching TV. Pay it forward. If you think that you're not going to be able to control all that stuff because you're just super hungry, maybe we should invest in, if Thanksgiving is on Thursday, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we start kicking some ass, cutting down, fasting a little bit, exercising a little more without getting hurt, so that when it comes to Thanksgiving Day feast, at least you won't be as guilty because you paid it forward. So if you don't have an exercise routine, be careful. If you do, crank it up a little bit. I think if you go into Thanksgiving without any control, at least if you invest in some deeper dive of exercise, a little bit of fasting, a little bit of watching your meals, number one, you'll be ready to have the gluttony of Thanksgiving. Number two, you might not want to practice gluttony because you feel so good. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Black Friday, then you can go shopping. Well, I don't know if we can go shopping. We're kind of locked down. Regardless of what you try, let's try to use the rest of 2020 to prepare for 2021. I have a feeling with the vaccine coming out, with the lockdown being practiced with the new government, we should have a new 2021, and it should be really cool. So hopefully you're staying healthy. you're having fun with your family, and let's get healthy together. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next video.